Welcome to this episode of the Growthcast. My name is Jackson Campbell, and we are here for another extended cut episode. I'm joined here today again with my good friend, my mentor, co-host in these extended cut episodes, Dallas Pruitt. I'm very grateful and happy to be here with him once again. Very excited to dive into today's episode. We have been alluding to an announcement regarding these extended cuts that we will dive into here shortly. But if you're new here to the Growthcast, we're very excited to have you here. And we're very excited to have you here. Buckle up. Today's going to be a great episode. We'll dive into some things and some changes that are coming forward on the Growthcast. But let's dive straight into learning, dude. I think that's why everybody comes to the Growthcast anyway, is to learn and be edified and to learn from you, Dal. So let's dive straight into things. This past month, we've been going over growing pains. We've been kind of highlighting growing pains and understanding the importance of them and understanding how to navigate them as they come up, right? Because the Growthcast, we talk about principles that are going to help you grow, principles that are going to push you to be your better self. And as you grow and become your best self, there's changes that happen, and a lot of times there is some pain that comes with those changes. But understanding those pains and understanding how to navigate those pains to get through them quicker, to not have them be pains at all and have them be strengths and help you. We want to talk about them, and we wanted to shine a light on them and highlight them. So that's what we've been doing this past month. We've been going over these growing pains, and I just want to highlight them as we kind of come to an end on these growing pains. This will be the last episode that we do revolving these growing pains. I just wanted to review them before we dive into the last principle that we'll go over, the last growing pain, which is letting go. But Dal, let's review really quick. We talked about fear of change first. Give us a high level overview of fear of change and that growing pain and how we can get through that.
Yeah. All right. I'll give a brief summary on these things. So fear of change, one is a rule of thumb is it's normal. It's just completely normal to have fear of change. And feel it and do it anyways is kind of the mantra, is kind of my mentality or approach, when I'm dealing with change. Feel the feelings of being a little scared, a little nervous, a little anxious, but do it anyways, because reality is anything that is new is going to seem scary to your brain most of the time. And it's going to feel unsafe. It's going to feel maybe even dangerous. But the reality is it's not. If you've done your homework, if you know where you're headed, it's not. It's different. It's new. Mm-hmm. Don't get that confused with dangerous. And don't get hurt, right? Pain confused with dangerous either, right? It's just like the same analogy of like going to a gym and working your muscles out so they'll grow. Your muscles are going to hurt. That's like a good sign that pain is a good sign you're doing it right? And that it's doing its job, and it doesn't last forever. You get through it, and it doesn't last forever. So
right, and just to add on to that, navigating in that darkness and that change as you're evolving into that new person. That's a good place to be. That's where you want to be. That's where the growth happens. So that may be the dangerous or unsafe place that you're feeling, is just that unknown. But that's exactly what it is. It's just unknown. So be patient with yourself as you navigate that fear and as you navigate that darkness, because you're learning and you're growing.
The opposite of that is atrophy, right? Like the opposite of that is atrophy. If you really just think of it as a muscle, growth as a muscle, like you are a muscle as a holistic person, atrophy is like not using it. If you don't use it, you lose it, and so it's like, it's the same. You want to feel that. Like there's obviously we all have different pain tolerance, and we can grow that as time goes on, and we all have different risk tolerance and those types of things. And like you can get better at those things as you grow as a person and put these things to practice. But like regardless, like the pain is a good sign.
It's a good sign. Yeah. You should seek that out. Yeah, you should seek that out, if anything, because if you're in that spot, it's a good indicator of growth for sure. Okay, let's try not to get caught up on each one of these.
Yeah,
next
one, I'll go fast.
Next one that we did is lack of self-discipline and self-doubt. Give us a high level on that one.
Okay, I'll give you a brief one. So start small, grow from there. When it comes to self-discipline, start small and grow from there if that's something you're struggling with. And, doubt, on the doubt end, it usually comes from your lack of follow-through on prior commitments in your life. And so as you look back on your life, see where you've done a good job of following through. There's got to be somewhere that you've done a good job of following through, and generalize that across all fronts, right? Like that skill set can be generalized across all fronts. Let that build your confidence up, stack those wins throughout the course of your lifetime, and just look at the places where you haven't, and again, get in that space mentally again, if it's still important to you, where you haven't followed through. And that comes back to that first piece I said, is just start small. Just start small and be consistent. It doesn't need to be this big grandiose thing. It just has to be something simple and easy to deliver on that you can do consistently, and that you can incrementally grow from there. So many people want to go all in, full bore, maximum capacity, and be the best right out of the gate, and that's just not how self-discipline is cultivated. It's cultivated little by little, and that little by little becomes a lot over the course of a long period of time.
Love it. Such a good review. Okay, the next growing pain we talked about was resistance to feedback and change.
Cool. So rule of thumb that I noted here is that just find people who have already been where you want to go. That's a really important rule of thumb here, right? Seek their advice, value it. And another piece is just drop your ego and do a good job of just putting it in check as often as you possibly can. The way you can do that is to value learning above all else. This is the episode where we talked about just putting the value of learning above being right or getting it all right. You're on a progressional path of just learning as much as you possibly can. And when you already know something, what you're actually doing is you're creating a tendency to shut the door to more abundance more often in your life, and that's a bad choice, right? So it really just boils down to, are you focused on learning or are you focused on being right? If you're focused on learning, you won't struggle as much in this area. But if you're focused on being right, then you are going to struggle a lot in this area over the course of time.
So good. So good. If you tuned into the episode before this one that you're listening to right now, Tyler and I dove into this one. It's a very good episode. So tune back into that one to kind of tie those two episodes together. I'm excited to kind of go back and listen to those back to back. Just awesome perspectives on receiving feedback, giving yourself feedback, change, adaptability. Very good episodes. So definitely tune into those. Those back to back, like I said, those are going to be awesome episodes. I'm pumped to re-listen to those.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but the last growing pain that we've talked about thus far is lack of support and the struggles that come with that.
I think that circle of influence, just your circle in general around you, is really important, and obviously the environment you put yourself in. So things to think about here is, are you reaching out to those who are in a similar, if not really the exact same boat that you're in and where you're headed, the direction you're rowing? Sometimes the issue is you're just seeking support from people who don't know how to give it in the areas that you need it. And also, you just need to understand that leading out in something, right, being a leader in something, trying to be great at something is going to be a lonely road inherently. That's just reality. I don't have anything, crazy that I can tell you right there on that specific note, other than it's going to feel lonely. When you try to be great at something, I don't care what you're trying to be great at, that's just not like the normal decision that the average human being makes. And so in a weird way, you're just going to have to feel good. You're going to have to find a way to almost reward yourself for being on that path and having it be lonely, right? Like that's a telltale sign that you're doing great work. It's hard work. But you can find people, your people for your thing. And that's really important, is you have to be willing to change that circle up and go into environments that are going to be more conducive to the types of things you're doing and the type of person you're striving to become. But another note that I put on here is just don't jack up. It's not a rule that you have to jack up all the relationships that you have in your life in a previous segment of your life to get you where you want to go along your way, right? In fact, I'd argue that that's just something that you should also probably try to not necessarily sustain in the same manner, but just sustain love for those people that have helped you along the way in those moments when you needed it. Absolutely. Yeah, you've grown and changed, but like, don't get stuck in this mentality of like, oh, well, I'm above this, or I'm so different now, and this is just, I got to close the door off entirely.
One of the ways that we talked about doing that also is if you're feeling the lack of support from people, if you're not feeling that support that you're needing or that you're looking for, or you're talking about this situation, you don't want to leave those people behind that you're growing from. You know what I mean? The best thing that you can do in these types of situations is flip the focus back on yourself and make sure that you're being that person of support, that you're being that light to others. And the chances are, if you're being that person, you're being that person of support, and you're exuding that type of positivity, you're going to attract all the support that you need by giving the support that you need. So that's one that I love. That's just a little tidbit that I love to throw in there.
It's just the paradox of growth in general. Do that you essentially said, like, do what it is you need.
You're needing. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, that's
Be it for
really
somebody
growth
else.
101, almost like in so many different ways.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah. All right, Dad. Well, awesome. Thank you for reviewing those. So again, just high level, we talked about fear of change, lack of self-discipline and self-doubt, resistance to feedback and change, and then lack of support. So all very good episodes. Definitely tune in for all those. Go back and listen to those if you haven't thus far. But today we want to talk about letting go and the growing pains that come with letting go. But so Dal, let's dive in. Let's dive straight into this. Dallas, can you help me understand, or help us understand, why letting go to certain things is so important to growth?
Yeah. Well, I'll do my best. Let's
dive. Yeah, dude.
I'll do my best. I don't have all the answers, but I know that grief is a real thing, and it's tough, right? When letting go of something, it involves whether that's a relationship or something that is super sentimental to you, like a home, right? I think about experiences I've had. There is a grieving process, and you can do your research on the grieving process and, all the steps in the grieving process. But as a rule of just general, right, just a general rule, grief is a tough thing. It's just really hard. We're human beings, and we are sentimental about stuff, and relationships matter. We're social beings, and it's just tough to navigate, man. I've only experienced it at certain levels, and the hardest of those things that I've probably experienced is losing a child. At 14 weeks, my wife and I lost a child, and that was like a direct, like, that's as close of a human being as I've lost, next to like my grandpa or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And what I had done is I had created a clear vision for myself, for my family, for the trajectory of my life, the changes that were about to happen, that were happening, and the life that I'd have with this baby that was coming into the world, right? So much more than just that, but like, those are little pieces of it. And the one thing that I did in that moment is, in that time of my life, is I pushed my feelings aside. And you had like a direct front row seat to all of this. And I remember talking with you and other people that are in my circle. I was just like, I finally recognized, like, I had not really allowed myself to feel. I just kept moving forward, and that only seemed to trip up my growth as a person. That only seemed to create confusion and lack of progression. It made it more difficult. It made it a lot more difficult for me in my life at that time. And what I learned was, in order to let go, I had to allow myself to feel the emotion, the grief, the sadness. And that was hard, dude. That was really hard for me. It was extremely difficult. And it was extremely difficult in general because it was hard for me to move forward without feeling that emotion.
Yeah.
I couldn't move forward. I was living in the past. I had left a door open. I had left things unattended. And I was just, instead of like making space for more and growth, I was actually just filling the room up, because like I had two doors open at one time, and in a sense, and my space was just filling up and filling up and filling up, and I was becoming overwhelmed. Didn't know how to process things because there was so much going on. And, I put this here, like, yes, when one door closes, another opens, but now I believe that, right? But now I tend to be of the belief that in order to move through a new door, I have to do a better job of closing the old one, or closing that other door. Not forgetting, right? It's being grateful, right? It's feeling the emotion, and then it's feeling extreme levels of gratitude for having experienced that hard thing, right? to me, that means more accepting the new reality of my life rather than, forgetting about the old one or rejecting my emotions. It's being better because of what has happened or transpired in my life prior. And those emotions help me to do that. Those emotions help me to drive forward a better person, a better human being, a person that's more equipped and even just more uniquely positioned to help more people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
As I process that is, that's what I've come to the conclusion of regarding, this process of just letting go and why it's so important.
Dude, so good. Dal, thanks for diving into that, man. I didn't really expect for you to go this route, but I love that you did because it's so raw and it's so real and it's so tangible. Because I remember having a front row seat to that and watching you go through that and feeling a lot of that with you, dude. So I remember that and how you learned through that and how you pushed through that, dude. And as you're going through this and as you're talking about door and you're using that analogy and kind of painting that picture and kind of sharing your story through that example of closing a door and opening the next one, it's as you close that door, you also understand that walking through that door and closing that door has prepared you to open up the next doors. That's how it works, right? So though it was hard and you had to get through it and you had to walk through that hallway to get to that door to open it up and go through it and then close it behind you, you learned so much there. You learn so much navigating those in this situation, that grief, that struggle, losing a baby. You learned so much through that, dude. And you realizing that now and knowing that those things are preparing you for the next things in your life to teach you more about you. So like you said, you can understand yourself better so you can in turn help as many people or help even more people with that new perspective or that new thought pattern or that new thought process that you learned through that experience. It's powerful, man. And if you can think of letting go and change in that light, it's always going to be a positive thing. It's always going to be a good thing, and it's always going to be something that you're searching out for and that you're seeking to do. So Dallas, thank you for diving into that, man. It's a deep principle and it's an important one. And as you were talking too, Dal, it reminded me of one of the things that Inky Johnson said at Peak Partnership this last year. He talked about shedding an old skin in order to come into your new skin. Like very similar to how reptiles shed their skin, right? As you're closing this door, as you're shedding this skin, you're also unveiling this new layer of you that you've just discovered, that you are just now learning about. That's a beautiful new aspect to you and who you are. So as you do that, it's a beautiful new beginning each time you're able to let go. But Dal, all of that being said, why do people have such a hard time going through that process? Because we just discovered that it's a beautiful process, it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that we should, like I said, sought after. We should seek after those things. Why is it so hard for people to do it?
Because I think, well, let's see if I can articulate this. I'll do the best I can. For me, it all goes back to the change thing. And the reason I say that is because the more I've learned about the brain's natural state, the more I understand that it just, again, safety, it resists the unknown. And as much as we say we want growth, I think a lot of people that want that growth, they also, right, they want better, but they haven't put better as a synonym for change. And so change continues to be, they continue to have a negative relationship with change because they haven't properly defined that change, and change is good, change is necessary, change is something we should seek, and it's scary because it's different. Change is so different, and that's it means that a new world, if you go into a new world, right, full of change, that means that you have to learn. Mm-hmm. That means, again, you don't know it all. And so, again, coming back to like the root of the mindset that I am so prone to just dive into every time I work with somebody is it's just learning. Like a new world means you have to learn. You have to be different because what was available in the past is no longer, right? The go-tos, the options, those things are just no longer. And the longer you sit in the thought of, oh man, I wish I would have done this, or if only I could, do this, if only this was different, right? It only prolongs your growth. And so for me, acceptance is this like powerful word that's kind of this uniform word across all fronts today. Is just like, it's a powerful thing, man. It's a powerful tactic. Acceptance. It's a stoic principle, really. And that's the one extremely powerful and extremely difficult tactic that works wonders in terms of growth at any stage of life, at any stage of business. Yes, you should push, but at some point you have to pivot. At some point you have to be flexible. At some point you've got to get creative. That's how growth works. You don't get to control everything. You can only control what you can control.
You're saying at some point, but it's the whole point, the whole time.
It's the entire thing.
It's the whole thing. It's the whole point of it. It's the whole thing is being able to accept that and be flexible to make those changes.
You spoke of Inky Johnson. Right? I read a thing this morning with Inky, and he had mentioned that you never give up, right? With whatever your vision is, like you never give up, ever. You just pivot. You're flexible. I've been talking to my kids about flexibility. My daughter, she's like the person that is so persistent on if you say you were going to do something, you better do it exactly the way you said you were going to do it. Well, our life is complicated. We have 4 kids. We're just like any other family that's busy, and things can't work out perfect the way I told her it should work every day. So I've been talking to her a lot about flexibility, and the important skill it is, not because I want an out, but I want to teach her that in life, welcome to life, sister. Like I know you want what you want, and you should freaking go out and you should get it, sweetie. You should. But along that journey and along that path, if you aren't flexible, if you don't figure out how to become moldable, adaptable, and flexible to the extenuating circumstances that will hit you in the face every single time you try for something that you really want and is great, you're going to have a really hard time getting there. It's not a straight line. It is a zig. It is a zag. It is a different path than what you could imagine or draft up, and it won't work out perfect. So accept that and become flexible. Learn to be even more flexible with time, right?
Dude, so good. So good. And it's so important, bro. I love that you just dove into that. Dal, how can we identify what we need to let go of? How can we like do self-inventory on what we need to let go of, and what's that process look like? I don't know if you have any actionables there.
I mean, ask yourself the question, are you committed to being super real with yourself? A lot of people aren't. A lot of people live in denial. And I do this by and I'll kind of walk through this and see if we can pull some super specific things out of this. But I ask the question a lot of time, just like, what's serving me? What's serving me right now? What's serving you and that could be in terms of thoughts. Like, what thoughts do you need to let go of? What thoughts are serving you?
Yeah, real
Which
quick.
Ones aren't?
Define that for me, serving you.
Yeah, serving you. Helping you progress forward. What is helping you progress forward for the vision that you have for your life, for your family, for your business, for yourself, for the way you want to live and who you are and who you want to become? That's really like unpacking that question of like serving you, because I think that's a great like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if it's a call out, but like emphasis on that. Like I wanted to emphasize that question that you just rebutted, because
it's important.
I have actually approached. Yeah, I have approached a number of situations throughout my work and studies where this question of what's serving you lacked depth, lacked understanding, and I think it can get you extremely off base in your life if you're not careful, if you're just asking it like at a simple level, like, oh, what's serving me, in a selfish way, right? Like, what's serving me? Well, well, this relationship right now is not serving me, so like I'm just going to cut it off. Well, what if that person's your wife of 20 years. For me, I think about myself. That person's my wife of 20 years. Well, I'm supposed to think that like it's all butterflies and rainbows, and now that it's not, well, it's not serving me, so something's got to change. Well, that's easy. I can change that by, exiting this relationship. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into that. What's serving you? What's serving you in terms of like what is it you want with this person, right? You want
or the
more,
situation,
the
right?
situation. Like what do you want out of this? So I think that's just a great reiteration.
Yeah,
right
so
there,
you have to ask yourself that. I mean, everybody has to decide that for themselves. What's serving them, and what does that mean to each person? But as we kind of talk about this, and we're kind of identifying those things that we need to let go of, you have to identify what is serving to you. And when I say what is serving to you, and as you're saying what's serving to me, it does sound very selfish. But when you realize that me that we're talking about, that you that we're talking about, it's like a royal me and you, where it's meaning your purpose. Like what's serving to your purpose, what's serving to what you're trying to accomplish.
Let's give a super specific thing. So like I want a happy family. Like part of my life that I want to make sure that I'm always, cultivating properly is I want my family to just be a happy family, right? Yeah. Like, and not just like happy-go-lucky. Like I want us to thrive together. I want to have quality relationships with my kids, and so let me dive into this. Okay, let's use a thought as something that we need to let go, right? I have a 5-year-old who throws tantrums. Anybody who knows me and who knows my 5-year-old knows that she's the freaking funnest, most exciting, just kindest human. She's so damn fun to be around. She's such a beautiful kid. But she can freaking go buck wild sometimes. And when that happens, sometimes I have thoughts. Maybe a thought is, gosh, Dylan, you're a terror, right? Like maybe I'm just loosely like using terminology like that because I'm frustrated. Does that add to the situation in making it better? That thought is not serving me at that point because what does it do? It trips up my emotions in a negative way.
Right.
Why would I continue down that rabbit hole of saying things like that to myself or holding on to thoughts that are not true? Right. But it's something that we trip up on all the time as human beings. We have to catch ourselves in those errors and course correct and fix it. That thought is not serving me as her dad. Not me as a person, like I need to get out of this situation. That thought is not serving me as her dad. What is a thought that would serve me as her dad? Man, Dylan must be hurting. I don't know what the answer is, but I know there's a solution. And I love her. That's a thought that serves me as her dad because it produces what? Better feelings. And what do our feelings do? They produce better actions. Thoughts equal feelings. Feelings produce actions. So that's just kind of a breakdown right there of what we mean by this question, right?
It's so good. So Dal, let's dive into letting go and what we've identified we maybe need to let go of here on the Growth Cast. These changes that we've been alluding to. We're just changing up the Growth Cast a little bit and making some changes and realizing through this growth process that we got to let go of some things in order to enhance other things, right? And that's what we're talking about right now. You have to let go of these past habits and some of these past actions that you used to do in order to enhance the current ones that are the focus, right? So, Dal, I don't know if you want to dive into these. Yeah,
I'll let you kind of like drop the big bomb, but like this has been an ongoing dialogue that we've had internally for quite some time, and such is the case with all of us. It should be, at least with growth in our lives, right? Like that's an ongoing dialogue we should have with ourselves, because the process of like letting go and growing is exactly that. It's a process. It's ongoing. It's constant. You know what I mean?
We talk about growth. And it's so fun that this podcast has become this and kind of led up to this episode. It's actually really fun because when we started the Growth Cast, it was the epitome of growth. It was the epitome of starting something new and taking that chance and kind of just navigating in the darkness and trying to figure it out as we go. We picked the name The Growth Cast just because we thought that was a cool name. We thought it had a cool ring to it. It made sense with the multifamily mindset and our focus on growth mindset and abundance. with the multifamily mindset, but we've learned and we've grown. And as we've kind of navigated in that darkness, I think what episode are we on, Dallas? 600?
It's like almost 700.
Yeah, we're late into the 600s, almost to 700 episodes. And we've navigated this, and we've received some guidance, and we've learned some things that we're just making some very minor tweaks and some very minor changes to the Growth Cast that Dallas will allude to and talk more about on Monday. So definitely tune into the Monday episode where Dallas will break that down a little bit more. But we're making some changes to the podcast. We're changing the name from the Growth Cast to simply the Multifamily Mindset Podcast, just because that's more cohesive and it's better and it tells a better story, and it really...
And that's who we are.
And that's who we are. This podcast, we've always said this is the Growth Cast presented by the Multifamily Mindset, but now it's just the Multifamily Mindsets Podcast because that's what it's always been. Again, we kind of just shot off into the dark when we started this podcast. So we've learned a lot and we've grown, and that's one of the changes that we're going to be making. So Dallas, again, will dive into some of those other changes and some of those things that you can expect moving forward on the Growth Cast on his Monday episode. Those Monday episodes, those Monday through Thursday daily drips aren't going anywhere. So definitely tune into Monday so he can talk more about those. But yeah, Dal, I don't know what else more do we want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain, there's a team here with us. And when we started, there wasn't a big team. Really it was Jackson and myself. We had no clue what we were doing. I had been given an opportunity to jump on board and help a startup company grow. A guy by the name of Tyler Devereaux who was on a mission to go impact the world for the better. He had a couple partners. Their names are Ryan Woolley and Todd Miller. I met a guy named Jackson Campbell. We shared a lot of common interests in helping people. I was on a specific mission as I came into this picture. And, Growth 101, behave your way into becoming who it is you want to be, right? And we wanted to get a podcast rolling. I was already a teacher, a coach, a professional in my space. And I just wanted to bring that work forward to this network. And Jackson jumped on board full force, was, co-pilot. And with time, it just continued to evolve, right? That mantra that I live by, which is learn, implement, fail, evolve. Well, that's what we did. And then we started to have this internal dialogue with this big team that all of a sudden appeared right on the forefront of this work. People like Strat Streetman and Nico and Jaden and Will and Tyler and myself and Jackson. And a few months ago, we just came in and said what everybody else I'm sure was thinking. I came in pretty hot and was just like, man, like, have we had this internal conversation, right? This dialogue that we just kind of broke down today. Like, are we growing or are we stagnant? And, we all came up to the conclusion that we wanted to grow, that we were growing, but we could grow more. And if we got clear with our vision and with our purpose and the way we communicate and the things we focus on, and bringing more and more of this community into the fold and bringing those stories to life, and really just making this mission the forefront of our focus on everything we do and helping people think bigger, live better, and lead with MF Aloha in their lives and build content in this podcast around all of that ultimately that's how we were going to do better work, and that's how we were going to be able to grow and help others grow. So at that point, right, we went through this process, this outline, and those decisions were easy. And we've been preparing for the last couple months strategically, putting some things together. And at this point, man, we're just ready to let the cat out of the box and just roll full force. So starting Monday, you will be a part of the Multifamily Mindset Podcast. And it's the same team, same crew, same mission, just enhanced as we move forward. So
exactly, it's kind of been fun to watch the Growth Cast grow in its own respective lane, right? And to put these principles that we talk about every single week, you talk about them every single day, and to put them to action and put those principles to work on the podcast that you're teaching those things on. It's really cool to see, and to see the podcast again receive this feedback, know that we can grow better and make those changes and adapt to what it is that the true purpose of the podcast is, right? The true podcast of the purpose is to enhance to enhance belief, and to enhance growth, and to help everybody learn those things and implement those things in their lives. And that's exactly what we're going to continue to do. So I know we kind of made this kind of dramatic and this big change, but there's not really this massive change that's happening other than the name change. We won't be doing extended cut episodes anymore. You will be hearing more from students and guests on Aloha Friday episodes. So with Tyler and myself, you'll be hearing guests of students who have been through the Multifamily Mindsets mentorship program, have had success. We'll be interviewing them and talking about their stories and their growth and their change that they've seen in their life. You'll see Tyler Devereaux on there interviewing high-level people within the multifamily industry, within the entrepreneurship space. So tune in for those. Not a ton of changes, but again, just some exciting pivots that we're making in order to build better, tell a better story, and build cohesiveness around what it is that we're doing. For those of you that have been around from the beginning of the podcast and have been listening for a couple years, now you know that the podcast has evolved and has changed, and it will continue to evolve and change. And there will be things that will continue to be added on or taken off, and it will continue to ever evolve to provide the best content around growth and abundance as possible. So I'm so grateful, dude. I'm just so grateful to be a part of the podcast and how it's grown and how it's changed and how we continue to adapt to make it better, to learn more about ourselves, and to, again, in order to touch more people and help more people grow.
Absolutely.
And change in their own lives. So Dal, anything else before we sign off of this last extended cut?
You'll continue to hear us really focus in on thinking bigger and living better. And we promise to provide you with a ton of tools, resources, experiences, courses, a plethora of things, value, if you will, around those two specifics. We want to help you as much as we possibly can to think bigger in your life and live better in everything you do and lead out with MF Aloha. This is our mission, and we're so grateful that you've joined us on it. And again, expect a lot of value from us as we continue forward in those specific realms. And I'm just grateful that you've been on this journey and that you'll continue on this journey forward with us, and grateful for all those that will continue to come into the fold. So
absolutely. Likewise. Also, tune in Monday. Dallas is the Multifamily Mindset podcast is still rolling. The schedule's still the same. So tune in Monday to hear from Dallas more about those changes that are coming down the pipeline, and to be edified to start your week off with growth. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. We appreciate you. We're excited for these new changes, and we love y'all. Take care.
Peace.